Good evening. Christos Anesti. Christ is risen. Yes, it's the time of Pascha. It's the Paschal season in the Orthodox Church. We just celebrated Pascha or Easter just 2 weeks ago. And for 40 days, instead of saying, "Hi, how are you?" the greeting is, "Christ is risen," and the response is, "Truly he is risen." Or in Greek, Christos Anesti and Alithos Anesti. In Russian, Christos Voskrese and Voistino Voskrese. In Arabic, Al-Masih Kam, Hakan Kam. There's all kinds of other languages. There's my favorite, Klingon, Hatukist! And the response is, Hu Bejta! So, yeah, there's that. Awesome. So I'm here because you'll recall last time I left you guys on a little bit of a cliffhanger. For all two people that view my videos, I was going to show you these things here, but I didn't have any AAA batteries at the time. So now I've got some batteries. I've come back a couple months later because, I do things slowly, and we're ready to go. These things are awesome. I'll get to that in just a second. First, I want to show off the shirt I ordered from Fan Designs on the internet. These are expanded universe characters. The Sith Lord Darth Bane and his apprentice Darth Zana. Bane, as most of you probably know, was the Sith Lord 1,000 years before the movies, who founded the rule of two, that there can only be two. Can't talk today. There can only be two Sith at any one time. He tricked the Sith into destroying themselves, and he was the lone survivor. And he found this little girl Zana, made her his apprentice, and grew the Sith Order over the course of 1,000 years in secret, with the apprentice rising up to destroy the master when he or she becomes strong enough and taking an apprentice of their own, and continuing in complete and utter secrecy for over 1,000 years until the time of the prequels, when Palpatine, or Darth Sidious, became Supreme Chancellor and then Emperor of the Republic turned Empire. This is a quote from Bane from the novel Darth Bane by Drew Karpyshyn. Sorry, I got an itch. Two, there should be, no more, no less. One to embody the power, the other to crave it. So that's Fan Designs. They advertise on Facebook a lot. Make sure you check them out. They got a lot of cool EU stuff. I've also got a brand new Revan shirt, Darth Revan. If I do a future video, I'll showcase that. Before I get to my goodies here, I'm going to really try to keep this one shorter. You know how I like to monologue, so no guarantees. But a couple of points I wanted to hit is that in a month, well, first, no. Today is Happy Expanded Universe Day. April 25th marks the day when Lucasfilm, under the new ownership of the Walt Disney Company, decanonized the entire expanded universe, and not just decanonized it, but discontinued it. Aside from the MMO, the Old Republic, the online multiplayer game, that's putting out new content both in the form of game expansions as well as short stories on the internet. That's the only portion of the Legends universe that's currently continuing. But they destroyed it on this day in 2014. A lot of fans have christened this day Death Star Day, which makes a lot of sense because it's as if millions of voices, as Obi-Wan said, cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced. Like everybody in these books and novels and games and everything you see right here. Makes sense. I like I prefer the analogy of Order 66 myself, simply because the press release by Lucasfilm on this day, 2014, eerily mirrors Palpatine's declaration of the New Order in Revenge of the Sith. They said that in order to facilitate full creative freedom, the expanded universe will be decanonized and rebranded Legends, which sounds a lot like when Palpatine said, in order to promote the maximum amount of safety, I'm paraphrasing here, the Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire. Um, so I've always found that similarity very striking. The movies were a little bit prophetic, if you'll. I mean, I just by coincidence. I don't think it's anything supernatural going on, but I like the similarity there. I don't like it, but I like to use it. Um, Another thing is, I have been in contact. Well, first of all, we've got the Han Solo movie coming out next month. Solo, a Star Wars story. And, you know, just like, if you don't mind, I'm going to browse my web browser here while I'm talking to you. Just like with Rogue One, which as it turned out could fit within the old canon with some apologetics. There's a chance Solo might too. I'm optimistic, but I'm very, very. I have my doubts. Put it that way. I just got in contact with a gentleman by the name, reestablished contact, I should say, by a gentleman by the name of Joe Bongiorno. This is a guy, I knew him back on the old Dark Horse Comics message boards about a decade ago. He went by the handle Darth Bane. I was Darth Anarchus, as I am known on most message boards. Star Wars and non-Star Wars. Joe was great. He has this great timeline on the internet, StarWarsTimeline.net. Check it out if you get a chance. Just amazing. Joe is he's great at really taking everything in the expanded universe and making a coherent timeline and reorganizing things to make sure that they fit logically. Going as a mostly off of Lucasfilm's official timeline, but making minor differences here and there where he disagrees with Lucasfilm. And I, for the most part, Joe is my favorite chronicler in Star Wars fandom. I have followed his timeline for many years. So I just got in contact with him several months ago. We discussed Rogue One and things like that. I convinced Joe to recanonize in his timeline the video games The Force Unleashed and The Force Unleashed 2, because according to him they just couldn't fit with established continuity. But I, in his words, very cleverly explained to him how they could fit, and he has reestablished, he has reincorporated them into his timeline. Which, Joe, I'm very grateful for you for doing that, sir. But onto the Solo film, I'm going to read verbatim on his blog here. As for the forthcoming Solo film, let's see. It features a lot of things from the expanded universe. Cloud Riders from the old Marvel comics, swoop bikes also from the old Marvel comics, as well as Shadows of the Empire and Knights of the Old Republic. The planet Mimban from Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which incidentally I'm reading right now, first time. I'll talk about that more in a second, just very briefly. Mala, Chewbacca's wife from the Star Wars Holiday Special, and the planet Vandor from the Jedi Apprentice series. Tag and Bink, who were never canon to begin with. They were an Infinity story, a non-canon story, but they've been incorporated into the Solo movie from their own Dark Horse series. And all elements from the expanded universe, Joe says. Most from the early days of it. Several of you have asked me to check out the film and see if it can fit in any way, shape, or form into the original EU storyline. While I have my doubts, the fact that Rogue One and Rebels fit just fine convinced me that it's possible to have a post-Disney project that fits both their storyline and the original canon. You can expect my thoughts on it after the film's debut. Well, Joe is going to check that out very graciously for all of us fans on May 25th. the night of the debut, and you know I'm just gonna go off of his verdict. If he says it's kosher, it's kosher. I'll check it out, and I will incorporate it into my head canon as well as, and also onto my shelves. If it doesn't, no harm, no foul. We've already got the backstory of Han Solo. We have the wonderful novels from A.C. Crispin, the Han Solo trilogy. There's another Han Solo trilogy as well. The author escapes me at this moment. I always get the two of them mixed up. I worry that the film is going to redepict, despite having all of these influences from the old canon, but redepict in a contradictory way the events of those novels, like an alternate meeting between Han and Chewie, an alternate meeting between Han and Lando, an alternate Kessel Run, possibly even an alternate Planet Kessel. That's a strong possibility. Now, I think Rogue One was a fluke. They didn't mean for it to be adaptable to the EU, but never know. I think I say it's less likely for Solo, but Joe's going to check it out, and Joe, hats off to you, sir. Shout out to you, by the way. Another chronicler that I used to interact with back on the old Dark Horse forums, Nathan Butler, who had his own timeline, Star Wars Timeline Gold. He differed a little from Joe. That I used to kind of reference back and forth between these two guys to organize my shelves. Joe, he has become disenfranchised. Let me explain that here in a minute. First of all, he had this updated, it wasn't online, but he had a PDF that would be updated with different versions that you could download of the Timeline Gold. Nathan, I'm sorry, not Joe. Nathan Butler, he, when the Great Decanonization happened, Nathan went along with it. He even criticized those for adhering to the old expanded universe as intellectually dishonest, which I disagree with. But he would continue to update and publish two distinct timelines, not incorporating from one things into another like Joe does. But he would, from 2014 onward, he would release an old canon timeline and a new canon timeline completely separate from one another. He stopped doing that recently, and there's a blog here by someone else. I'm going to read verbatim mostly. The first reason, completely understandable, and that is he's becoming a father. This is Nathan, why he's giving up this 2 decades long project that he's put so much time and effort to. Mr. Butler states his extreme frustration with how Disney and Lucasfilm has handled Star Wars, in that it's virtually impossible to create a timeline of the reboot canon. He notes how most of the novels and comics are completely side stories that don't really show any major events in the timeline, because all key events are only ever told in TV shows and movies to the reboot. So most novels and comics are pure filler and don't establish anything new or set up anything for future works. As he notes, the books are basically promotional items, talking of the new canon materials, the new canon books, not the EU, not my stuff. Lost my place, so I apologize. He notes the books are basically promotional items to hype an upcoming movie. He notes how the new books and comics fit poorly into a unified canon, that technically they are all the same level of canon, yet they don't seem to be part of a greater universe. Mr. Butler goes to great lengths explaining about the various mounting continuity problems and contradictions that keep appearing in the reboot works. Many of the new reboot novels don't even bother to give enough references to define when the novels take place. As Mr. Butler notes, it's very hard to tell what year the events happen in, and how many novels don't even have any well-defined year they take place in. He notes how the official reason for this lack of well-defined chronology is that Disney and Lucasfilm don't want to pin down a lot of details they may want to change later. So by leaving what year various events and stories take place in, they can more easily retcon, retroactive continuity is what that stands for, in other stories or cram more stories into a time period. It's a nightmare for someone who tries to interpret Star Wars as a coherent fictional universe with a well-defined history like myself, the writer of this blog on Facebook. He notes how it seemed was implied that Story Group, that's the newly structured group at Lucasfilm in charge of keeping track of all continuity in the new canon. Story Group is what they're called. Before the Disney buyout, they were called the Holocron Community, headed by Leland Chee. He was implied that Story Group had a grand plan that the new Story Group and rebooted canon would be a planned long-term story. But it's now clear there is no plan. They just work film to film and make whatever they want. There is no way... I think I'm going to skip some of this. He notes that there is apparently no continuity review of the new comics and novels to ensure that events in it, like the wedding of some main character from the new films, aren't told multiple times with different versions in different works. Like Han and Leia's story was, the story of their marriage was told several different times in the EU, in the original canon, which was retconned to be multiple accounts of the same event from different perspectives. And we are told that when Star Wars rebooted, that one reason for the new Story Group was explicitly to prevent things like this from happening again. Mr. Butler concludes that he, as a fan working on an unpaid project, was putting substantially more effort into keeping track of a timeline and continuity than Lucasfilm was. So basically there's an apathy that many people, myself included, are sensing with this, with the new Star Wars universe. He notes how the new Marvel comics are extremely vague about when they take place, like the new Han Solo films taking place between A New Hope and Empire. So at some vague point, roughly between a 3-year time span. And he complains about toxic fandom, which is to say how heated and antagonistic Star Wars fandom has become over the last few years, basically since the big reboot of 2014. Unfortunately, this is true. This is very true. This is true both on the fans of the new canon as well as some of our own. You're going to get bad apples there, and they are the louder of they're the loudest mouths of anybody else, it seems. So they seem to be misrepresented in their scope and their size. Quoting Nathan, "That's a post for another day, but yes, Star Wars fandom has become very toxic. I've been threatened, harassed, and cyberbullied for being a pro-EU/Legends supporter, and I've had friends in the EU movement who've had a lot more threats and cyberstalking directed towards them." And admittedly, on the flip side, that also is true from the Give Us Legends folks, which I consider myself to be a part of. A lot of them have said some really nasty things that they shouldn't have said to new canonists, and stop that. Stop it now. All right, let me finish this real quick. I'm going to take a break. Sorry, that hostility began on the very day of the reboot, when people who didn't like that Star Wars was rebooted were threatened, shouted at, and denounced for not getting on board with the reboot. And angry EU/Legends fans who were incensed at what had happened were out on the internet and looking for an outlet for their anger at what they saw as a betrayal, not just by Disney and Lucasfilm, I agree with that, but by other fans as well, which I also agree with. I, the writer of this blog on Facebook found it fascinating that a longtime defender of the Disney reboot is now seeing the problems with it that we've been saying all along. I've been saying that all along. I've seen this coming, and I know that this is just going to be a big mess. More on that in just a moment. Apparently dinner's ready. So I'll be back. All right, folks, we're back. Had some really good chicken with gravy just now in less than a split second. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? So, as I was saying, yeah, I and others foresaw the mess that the new canon would quickly become, despite the fact that they made it seem that this was some grandiose plan. As someone pointed out, the original expanded universe grew over 3 decades, gradually adding to the narrative of Star Wars, this era, that era, and what have you, until it became this massive organic whole narrative. The Disney canon seems to be growing at an artificial pace, you might say. It seems sort of forced in some way. I can't really put my hand on it. They are already saturating at an alarming rate all of those areas that this stuff covered. Matt Wilkins has predicted that we'll see another reboot in about 10 years. Probably right about that. I myself, I don't believe what they're saying, that all these media are planned out to be one massive narrative along with the films. I think that those producing the films at the very top level don't actually care what is coming out in printed media. That much is obvious. I'm seeing a disconnect. Even though I didn't see The Last Jedi, I don't plan to, but I have had people tell me what happens in that film, and hearing also what happens in the printed media from the new canon, there seems to be a little bit disconnect there. Like they wouldn't hesitate to steamroll over those media, and then they have another mess on their hands, and they just don't care. They do not care. So that's where I am with that. I'm going to allow Joe to go ahead and check out Solo. If he puts a stamp of approval on it, I trust Joe implicitly. I will see Solo for myself. I'll judge, and hopefully I will incorporate it into my head canon, into what you see here, as I have with Rogue One and other media. But I am extremely doubtful this time around. The great thing about Rogue One was that it was the theft of the Death Star plans. Well, there's a ton of those in the EU already. So many different stories, from Dark Forces with Kyle Katarn to Kayan Farlander in the X-Wing game, to another story, and a short story by, I think, Timothy Zahn, and another game, Forces of Corruption, I think it was. No, Lethal Alliance. Lethal Alliance with the Twi'lek girl. I can't think of her name right now. All these people stealing the Death Star plans, but the Holocron community, Leland Chee at Lucasfilm, they said, well, you know what happened? They're stealing different portions of the Death Star plan. So Kyle Katarn stole the portion for the super weapon. Another one stole this and that, and the Alliance compiled it all into one massive blueprint on Yavin 4. So what's another one? The Battle of Scarif taking place concurrently with the Battle of Taprawa. This was the key blueprint that showed that weakness in the design, which we find out was done intentionally. It was the one thing missing, and they exploited it. Problem with Solo is there can only be one account of the Kessel Run, Han and Lando meeting, Han and Chewie meeting, this and that and this and that. If they redepict those things in a way that does not jive with what has already come before, then Solo is to be rejected as an Infinities, as a apocrypha, just like Episode 7, 8, and the majority of the new canon. Oh yeah, so I'm calling this Expanded Universe Day. I'm not calling it Death Star Day. I'm not calling it Order 66 Day. I'm taking a negative and using it in a positive way to celebrate the life of the expanded universe. You know, the church celebrates the saints on their death dates, so I'm doing the same thing with the EU. Today is Expanded Universe Day, a day to celebrate the EU, which is exactly what we'll do here in a minute. Yeah, I'm reading Splinter of the Mind's Eye by Alan Dean Foster. I had to look at it for a second. Never had before. So far, so good. This book gets a lot of criticism because Han and Leia have a romantic tension between the two of them, but come on, they couldn't have known it in 1977. They weren't even meant to be brother and sister yet. We don't find that out later. They don't find it out until later in universe, so it's fine. We see them kiss in Empire Strikes Back, and a lot of us want to hurl when we see that, but hey, it fits. So I'm reading that, very excited. This kicked off the expanded universe. You remember when I took you through my tour, my stuff. This was supposed to be a low-budget sequel to Star Wars if Star Wars flopped. Han Solo's not in it because it wasn't clear yet if Harrison Ford was going to come back. He didn't have a contract. The whole thing takes place on a foggy planet, Mimban, which is going to appear in Solo, so that they could do the low budget filming without having to worry too much with the quality of the film. But it's interesting to see how things were viewed in the early expanded universe. There's a character in here. It's a great character, never been picked up again. I would have liked to have seen more people pick up her story and tell what happens after. We just know she becomes a member of the Rebel Alliance, and that's it. So I'm enjoying that quite a bit. Splinter of the Mind's Eye. There's a comic adaptation too, which I have. Okay, so I am currently writing a fan fiction, entirely EU compliant, about Arden Lynn. One day maybe I'll do a lore video, but very quickly, in the early days of the Jedi, the first great schism between the followers of the light side and the dark side, led by the General Zendor and his lover Arden Lynn. They were two Jedi, fell to the dark side, take a number of Jedi with them, and formed the Legions of Latau. They were sort of proto-Sith, the precursor to the Sith. The Sith don't come around for another 18,000 years. But Zendor and Arden Lynn, they had the Legions of Latau, which battled against the Jedi, which harkens back to one of George Lucas's early script treatments, where the Sith were called the Legions of Latau. Before that, they were the Sith Knights of Bogan. So there's a lot of homage there. So what I'm doing, and now it's been established, now this is through secondhand sources. It's never been told in actual story format, but we know Arden Lynn's story, that she goes and she is put into a trance for 25,000 years, comes back during the reign of the Empire and becomes a servant to Palpatine. Well, I thought that was cool. I'm telling her story right now, but I have used characters from existing EU material, because I've heard that her tomb was disturbed by Imperial scouts scouting hyperspace lanes throughout the galaxy. I looked up scouts on Wikipedia. That's the Star Wars official, well, unofficial wiki. Came across several scouts that we have learned about through the role-playing game. So I started to use those characters, and I realized, I don't know what these characters actually like. I hope I'm getting them right. I better read the original source. I ordered this online. It's the ISIS Coordinates, an adventure for use with the Star Wars role-playing game. So this was published in the early 90s. It's a rule book, and it's going to tell about this group of Imperial scouts and their story. And I'm using some of those characters in my story, and that's what's really lovely about the expanded universe, is because there you see a lot of that going on. One magical thing is in the game Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, which takes place after Return of the Jedi. There's one mission where you have to secure an ancient Jedi's tomb from a Sith cult. Well, in the Old Republic MMO, which is roughly 3,500 years before the films, you can choose to be a Jedi Knight, a Jedi Consular, a Bounty Hunter, Sith Lord, Sith Marauder for your starter character. It turns out, I mean, they all have their own stories. They've established that the Jedi Consular that you can play at is the Jedi buried in that tomb, which is just awesome. And I've explained to you the connections with the Rusan Reformation and then the Jedi Knight game and how they made that come together and actually be a major plot point for the history of the Sith. It just blows the mind, the brilliance of it, and that's what I'm trying to capture with my fanfic here. So let's get to these things, and yeah, let's go. Okay, actually made the bed. I didn't actually make my bed. I just took the top cover and covered over the mess. I threw a lot of things in the closet too. Shh. Anyway, so yeah, my mother complained in my first video, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're showing the world your junk." So not my junk, but junk. So let's go. If the cord will reach, okay. Some other crap is coming along with it, but okay, that'll work. So first here, and let me see if I can get a good shot of it. Now what? Let's turn this lamp on here. This is great. It has a little swivel thing. This is the Jedi Path. Check this out. Pretty cool, huh? Lights and sound. This was the manual for, where am I going to put this to show? There's not enough light there. This was the manual for the old Jedi Order, which Luke finds and makes his own commentary. It's really neat because look, we have so many. These are different people that have owned it: Yoda, Thames Cerulean, Dooku, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, Darth Sidious, the Emperor Palpatine, and Luke Skywalker have all owned this book and made their own comments. And here we have, there's a lot of inserts in this stuff. This is an introduction from the Yavin Praxium, year 24 ABY, after the Battle of Yavin. This is a note from Luke Skywalker. So it's really cool. There's a lot of stuff in here. Check this out. This is an in-universe document. Oops. Part 1, Introduction to the Jedi Order. Check it out. Here's the Jedi Code. Looks like it's been charred here, sort of burned. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no knowledge, there is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. And we got the Jedi Code, and if you check this out, look, here's a handwritten note from Ahsoka Tano. Here's one from Luke right here. Obi-Wan, yeah, it's Obi-Wan. There's a note from Anakin, all commenting on the text. This was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. History of the Jedi Order there. I'm going to try to get some... this is the prophecy of the Chosen One. Palpatine ripped it out. And that's just so cool. We can see little things here. And the reason for that is because Lucasfilm said not to talk about it. And here we even have an insert from Luke. These pages were already torn out when the book came into my possession. I don't know who tried to suppress the prophecy, but was most likely the Emperor, Luke. That's just really, really clever. Let's see, there's a lot of goodies in here. Core and attire and what is there? Attire and comportment. First pillar, the 3 pillars of the Jedi, the Force. And here's an insert here. I don't know if I can open this one-handed or not, but check this out. All right, so this is a floor plan of the Jedi Temple. Look at that. Look at that. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'll fix it later. Still the commentary from different people all about the Jedi's lightsaber, the different stances, and the lightsaber styles actually have. Here's a note from Darth Sidious. He signs his name with that little symbol there. The different lightsaber styles have their own unique names. And there's one from Yoda and Anakin. Sometimes these reference one another. Like Anakin referencing Yoda's. What's really funny is when we see Ahsoka talking about Anakin's some of his notes there. The Padawan. I just want to get to some of this cool stuff in here. Here's, what is this? This is supposed to be a napkin. Oh, yeah. Lucasfilm Ltd. This is a napkin. I think it belonged to Obi-Wan, or I don't know who this belonged to, but it's meant to be like coffee stained. There's the Diners logo there in the Aurebesh, which is a font from Star Wars. Very, very cool. There's just so much cool stuff in here. Some more stuff from Sidious. There's Ahsoka, all leaving their comments. I just want to get to the really cool stuff to show. Oh, here's a little coin here. I had to actually tape this in because it kept falling out of the book. Actually, let me try to find. There's a Padawan braid in here somewhere. It belonged to Obi-Wan. Let me see if I can find that. That's really cool. I'm sorry. This camera is like, it's not something it's a webcam, so it's not like I can look in the back, through the back of it and see what it's seeing. No, I actually have to turn around and look at my computer screen, make sure I'm holding it level for you guys to see. There's a patch. Oh, that's cool. This has all been inserted. They sold all these books as books by themselves, but they didn't have all the cool inserts. So, where's that braid? I want to show you the braid. Where's Qui-Gon's braid? It's in here somewhere. Well, in any case, there's a braid here. When you notice in Revenge of the Sith, or no, in Attack of the Clones, Anakin has that braid of hair down from his ear, behind his ear. That's signifying his status as a Padawan. It gets chopped off when you become a Jedi Knight in a ritualistic manner. So there's actually, in this book, we have Qui-Gon's Padawan braid that he saved and he put into the book. I can't seem to find that damn thing. Pages are like frayed on the end, so it's very difficult to flip through. Anyway, it's in there. It's in there somewhere. So we're gonna close this up. Oops. Okay, this one is cool. This is the Book of Sith, and this casing is meant to look like a Sith holocron. Now, if you thought this guy over here was impressive, wait till you see this. It's ready to rock and roll. Lights and sound, check it out. Check that crap out, man. Right? The Book of Sith. Look, it's got some goodies underneath. This is, I forget what this is. This is a thing. This is a Sith lightsaber crystal. It doesn't want to come out, does it? Yeah, hard to do this with one hand. Oh, here we go. Yeah, red crystal there for a lightsaber. Produce a red blade. Yeah. So this one is cool. If I can get it, can I get it back in there? I wonder. I'm gonna pause the video a minute so I can fix it. Oh, what fell? Oh, the book fell. All right, just a moment. Sorry about that, folks. Actually spent a long time trying to fix that damn crystal. Now I'm sitting in my chair again with the Book of Sith on my PC here on my computer. Let me move this. All right. Let's see. All right, so this is another introductory note from Luke. Each recovered text has its own texture and size. We'll never know what the complete books looked like. These pages are all that remain. Luke. The idea is, in the expanded universe, when Luke is growing the new Jedi Order, he's doesn't know very much about the Jedi. He's discovering ancient artifacts, trying to discover more about the past, not having a clue about it. And this fits in perfectly with this. So Luke has obtained this book, and he's making comments on it. Here's a preface. This is actually a book put together by Darth Sidious, or Palpatine. There's Luke's commentary on it. Let's see. And this has some neat stuff in it, too. New truths. Some history of the Sith. The first great schism. This is a goof up. Remember I talked about Zendor, the first Dark Jedi? Well, here he is depicted with a lightsaber. This is actually before lightsabers existed. The Jedi fought with swords at this time. So this depiction of Zendor with a red lightsaber is, for all intents and purposes, non-canon, or maybe a depiction from a later time period. It's a little anachronous. 100-Year Darkness, and the Jedi who fled to Korriban discovered the Sith species, and the two became one. It's very fascinating, the history of the Sith. Who all has comments in here? I know Darth Sidious definitely does, and Luke does. Let's see. Sith holocrons, some really cool stuff in here. Let's see. This first portion is a book written by Palpatine. Let's see. Oh, what's this? That's a thing. I think it's supposed to be some sort of flag. This is the Sith language. We can see more of it here. Really neat stuff. Oh, Darth Vader. Okay, he commented in this too. Vader. Okay. What's this portion here? I have to look at it in depth to know what it is, but check his stuff out. Got more comments from Darth Vader and Luke commenting on it. Let's see. What is this? What is that? Required equipment: 240 war droids, 1 stolen Republic, could be diversion, 75 dropships, harrowing tankers, siege, Sith assassins. What is this? It was so long since I opened this up, I apologize. Oh, this was okay. This is the attack plan on the Jedi Temple as depicted in the Old Republic MMO. This is when the Sith went in and on planet Coruscant, took over the Republic and destroyed most of the Jedi Temple. And here's the attack plan right here. Isn't that awesome? There's the Rule of Two I was talking about with Darth Bane and everybody like that. Let's see. There's the Baneite Sith with Darth Bane right here. Hope none of this stuff falls out. Okay. And it fell out. Imagine that. Okay. The Night Sisters of Dathomir. And just really cool stuff in here. Imperial insignia with the thing. Apologize. I would not make it as an amputee. I'll tell you that right now. I have no dexterity. Alright, I'm going to put you down for a second. Let's see. I'm sure you don't mind. Okay, so what is this? This looks to be a map of Sith space. Okay. Oh, no, this is a map during the Clone Wars. There's Darth Sidioth's signature right there. This is where he's sending Dooku and Ventress, the banking clan. That's where Amidala is. He's marking his territory, I guess. Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot a lot about this book, but it's dope. It really is. Okay. There's some more stuff. Let's see what you are. Okay, Imperial propaganda poster. Very good. In the Urabesh writing. And that's pretty much it. That's it for the Book of Sith. And this actually, this is not only interactive when you open it up, but when you put it back as well. Let's check this out. So we're gonna put this back in and press the button. See that? Isn't that dope? This is the Bounty Hunter code. This belongs to Boba Fett. You see, we have the Mandalorian symbol on the front there. I'm trying to not put a glare on it. Check this out. So this one over here, we've got his personal identification card, Boba Fett. This comes out. This thing comes down right here. And what we do is we just insert the card and it moves with it because I only have one hand and the magic doesn't happen. Camera's going in the mouth, folks. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, maybe not. Oh boy. Okay, how are we gonna do? Aha! And this one's slow, so I'm going to give it some help. There we go. Here's the Bounty Hunter code. Here's, this was acquired by the New Republic. There's an introduction there to the contents. Here's a Kaminoan saber dart like we see in Attack of the Clones. And this little booklet here, I'm going to get to that last. So let's check out the Bounty Hunter code. This is cool. This is two books sewn together in one. The first, you see the difference in coloration. The majority of this is the Bounty Hunter code, and these gray pages here are all about the Mandalorians. Boba Fett sort of stitched them together into one book, which I really think is really cool. An identification card, Imperial Space Ministry, Bureau of Ships and Services, Captain's accredited license. This is his license belonging to the Bounty Hunters Guild. Bounty Hunter Guild Handbook. And here's a introduction by Boba Fett. It's an updated Imperial edition. That's awesome. So, here we go. So this tells you all about the guild. There's different bounty hunters. If you remember that scene from the Empire Strikes Back where the Empire's collaborating with different bounty hunters to capture the Millennium Falcon. Well, excuse me, these commentators are all from that scene. Dengar, Bosk, it was the Trandoshan. There's more Dengar and Bosk. Of course, there's Boba Fett. Check this out. This is a wanted poster for Han Solo. Check that out. And his accomplished Chewbacca. And here is an in-universe version written in Aurebesh. Is that not cool? Tell me this is not some clever stuff. You're starting to see why now it's so much fun to be a Star Wars fan, especially of the expanded universe. I'm going to move the keyboard over a little bit so nothing falls again. All about the different rules and regulations for participating in the Bounty Hunter Guild. There's not a whole lot of memorabilia in this version. There's just not. So there's a couple inserts, but not a whole lot here. Let me see. Oh, here we go. Imperial Bureau of Ships and Services. This is Boba Fett's registration card for his ship, the Slave One. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is for his arms loadout permit. Okay, so this is for his twin blaster cannons. Oh no, this is for the Slave One because the dorsal. This is for the weapon system on the Slave One. Got it. Okay, so some more stuff by Bosk and Dengar. Thievers. This is the end of the Bounty Hunter Handbook. And here is a printout specs on the Slave One. We see this in Empire Strikes Back as well as Attack of the Clones under both Jango and Boba Fett. And here's the part of the second book, all about the Mandalorians that Boba Fett. And actually, we have something from Jango Fett here. Okay, and then Boba. Jango, this is kind of cute. For you, my son, a glimpse into the mind of my enemies. And then Boba Fett, when he grows up, writes, for you, my daughter, may you begin to understand. Because Boba Fett does have a daughter in the expanded universe. Here's one from Aura Singh. All about the Mandalorians and their culture. So this is honestly two guides in one, both the bounty hunters and the Mandalorians. And this is just some instructions on how to work this thing. So I want to show you this little booklet here, Making a Killing. This is by Kradosk, the father of Bosk, the Trandoshan. I love the opening to this. Dedication, it has a crossed out for my son Bosk, and then he writes, for Boba Fett, I wish you were my son, Grandosk. Jerk. Cutting to the chase, this is just Kradosk talking about his views on bounty hunting. And I just want to read to you the end here because... And then check this out. This is an in-universe copyright by Kradosk, all rights reserved. Anuba Press. That's fictional, but it's clever. And here's some. Just want to read the last page and a half for you from here. Just this kind of for me when I read this encapsulates why the EU is so magical. Now I know what you're thinking. You think your distance from me keeps you safe, still alive, still conscious, still reading. Maybe you've never broken any laws, or maybe you did, but you doubt anyone knows about it. Maybe it's hard for you to imagine that anyone wants you dead, let alone that you would pay someone like me, that they would pay someone like me to do the job. You're certain that I couldn't touch you, not where you are now. Then let me ask, before you turn the back cover to this book, before you even touch this book, did you thoroughly inspect it, run it through scanners to classify its molecular content, and check any energy emissions? And of course, I had to turn it back there. Determine exactly where the book came from, who might have touched it, and how it arrived in your possession. Deploy a droid you programmed yourself to open it from a safe distance. And because some concealed explosives are particularly sensitive and engineered for specific targets, did you also make sure that your enlisted droid's metal fingertips were coated with minute samples of genetic material from your own body? Now, tell me the truth. Did you do those things? Any of them? And even if you did, would you allow the possibility that I know, maybe 50 other ways to use a book to deliver death from afar? I've already mentioned explosives, but how about toxic poisons? While you're thinking about it, you should put this book down for a moment, examine your hands, which might be itching by now. Notice any discoloration? Made you look. Is that not awesome? It makes you feel like you're part of it. If that doesn't tell you why the EU is so special for so many of us, nothing will really. And the last one over here, this is the Imperial Handbook. This, I'm going to need two hands to open this because I have to press right here and right here, so bear with me just a second. There we go. See that? There's the Imperial Handbook. And this, what I have to tell you, as a libertarian, check it out. There's this is an actual badge that you can wear. As a libertarian, this was a fun read because, you know, I hate governments. And this is just, it reeks, the whole thing, you can tell, reeks of high state allegiance and things like that, which are, are part and parcel of governments here. It's a serial number, description of the book and everything like that. I believe this came into the possession of the New Republic. Here's an introduction from Emperor Palpatine / Darth Sidious, but this is an official document, so he's not referred to by his Sith moniker. Part 1, the Imperial Military. This one has almost no memorabilia in it, to be honest with you. It's got a lot of great stuff. Oh yeah, so the New Republic did get their hands on it. Here's a comment from Crix Madine, General Madine in the Return of the Jedi. There's one from Mon Mothma, also from Return of the Jedi, commenting on all this stuff. Their perspective from a rebel standpoint. Here's a comment from Mon Mothma. Here's one from Han Solo, another one from Han, and Wedge Antilles, the pilot who flew with Luke in the Death Star trench run, and also at the Battle of Endor while Luke was battling the Emperor. Some more stuff about all the different ranks here. There's a note from Han. I think Leia has some comments in here as well about the different ships. General Riken from the Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, different ships. This was really a fun read. Very technical, but the Imperial Army. There's a quote from Leia. Here's one right here. And Han, Leia. I think this is Leia commenting on this paragraph, and that's Han commenting on Leia's comment. So there's a lot of sort of funny back and forths in here. Let's see. A lot of propaganda posters you can see, and leaf through this very briefly. I don't think there are any inserts in this one, to be honest. Well, what was that? What was that? Let's see. Was that an insert? I don't think that was an insert. These are blueprints. Yeah, this one doesn't have really any inserts, which kind of disappointed me. And what's interesting is this came. Sorry if I'm not holding it still. This came out after the decanonization of the EU, but it is still part of the EU universe. Now there was one more produced, but it's within the new canon. It's from whatever happens, whatever governments in power in the new canon after Return of the Jedi. So they have their own now, but the majority of these are old canon. And closing note from His Imperial Majesty, and there's some instructions for you to operate it there. So this is just way cool stuff. Gonna lay you down to close that. Alright. Alright. So where are we at here? Okay. There we go. And you're going back on top of this screen here. Alright. Wasn't that fun? Got some Star Wars toys there. Maybe we'll talk about those some other time. I'm thinking maybe I could do a lore video. Maybe talk about the history of the Jedi. Devote a video to that. A history of the Sith. Devote a video to that. I don't know. Maybe the two people that watch my videos can offer me their ideas. I hope that was a lot of fun. And take care. May the Force be with you. Christ is risen.